look at the great critics, film critics, or even literary critics, people who not only reviewed but also wrote essays about the nature of the particular art form.
Yeah.
In film, it's certainly Pauline Kael is a top rank.
Of course, of course. I mean,
who else?
Apart from Pauline, who, you know, in his footsteps, I was like
the dean of,
you know,
so to speak.
There's a guy called David Thomson, who's a wonderful writer who has a book called The Biographical Dictionary of Film, and in fact, there's a new edition out right now, and that was a revelation to me reading that, because there was a famous moment when I was reading that, and it said, Cary Grant is the best and most important actor in the history of cinema. I thought, oh, well, I know I love Cary Grant, and I've sort of seen the movies and I watch them, but, you know, shouldn't I be thinking about Brando or, you know, Charles Laughton?
Or whoever,
And I suddenly thought, oh yeah, you can think that the guy you love watching, like, on a, you know, rainy Tuesday night with a bucket of ice cream is the best guy, you know. It's okay to think this. And the fact that a film is 3 hours long and, you know, set in Russia doesn't make it per se a more interesting film. In fact, you know, the light comedy made in 1939 could be the real thing, and that was a revelation to me, and it turned me around when I first read that. And now I do think, not only do I think Bringing Up Baby is, you know, a fun, you know, it remains a great fun piece of work and a great entertainment, it happens to be one of the best, you know, it's one of the best reports filed on, you know, the battle between men and women, between this almost, you know, this almost Shakespearean lunacy that Katharine Hepburn goes into. And the way in which those movies of that era, women ran rings around the men. Barbara Stanwyck ran rings around Henry Fonda. You know, Hepburn ran rings like Cary Grant. She ran running around Cary Grant. You know, and this has there ever been a greater, you know, demonstration of womanly power? And these, when we go back to them now, they were Saturday night movies.
All right, Pauline Kael and Thomson, what do they have? I mean, is it the sort of the capacity to look at movies with through a certain prism that makes movies, they see it clearer, they see it in a way, and are able to express that in prose that's compelling?
If there is a prism, it's a prism that brings all the beams of light together, because both of them are interested in not just in movies, but in books and art, and
so they see movies in the context of the world.
And life comes in and is channeled into the movies, you know, and I feel that's very, very important. And also, neither of them do I read primarily for the substance of their verdicts. You know, I don't go, oh well, David doesn't like this film, therefore I'm not going to go, or Pauline loved that film, therefore I must go. That's interesting, and it's, you know, it's very much something that they would want you to disagree with them on or agree with them on. But something I've tried to argue myself is that, you know, the idea that we go to movie critics purely to tell us whether to see a movie or not, for their verdict, this is
so
this
the
is such
idea
a paltry
of thumbs up
thing.
And thumbs down doesn't
I think
appeal
film
to you.
critics should have thumbs surgically removed. Okay, when the moment you get the job, if you really can't do anything else, become a movie critic, tell them taken away, and just stop that, you know, and because it's not your job. Your job is to tell you, tell your reader what kind of sensory experience he or she is going to have. What's it like in there? It's like coming back from a holiday.
Yeah. Have you written a review of a movie that had some staying power and come back and saw it a year later, or 2 years later, or 5 years later, and said, I was dead wrong? I say that because it is my understanding from this that you believe you ought to write the movie within a day of seeing. You ought to write the criticism within a day of seeing the movie.
You should get going and say what you think, yeah. I'm not sure if I would absolutely recant on any of these things, although I wouldn't go to the stake on any of them either, but I would, I think something like LA Confidential, for instance, which is a very good movie, very smart and swift and sure and well-paced, and, you know, much better than the stuff around it. But I remember Dave Remnick, the editor of The New Yorker, saying to me about 2 weeks later, Anthony, it's good, but it's not Chinatown, you know. And it may be that sometimes when
did you say that?
No, I didn't, but I mean, I think most of us probably went a little bit overboard because the surrounding stuff was so weak, you know, that we thought, this is it, this is the great thing. In fact, you know, let's, and 10 years later, and you have to wait, you know, time has to settle on these things. You think, it's great, but it doesn't have that amazing, you know, luminous feeling that Chinatown does. It doesn't feel like a tragedy in the way Chinatown does. It's a very, very good thriller. Whereas Chinatown, you look back on, and it feels like, not only does it define the era it's set in, it defines the era it was made. It defines the era in which Pauline Kael was writing about it. And then when John Huston sits down in that movie, you know, with lunch, talk about, that's what I mean by life coming in, okay? Yeah. John Huston is, he brings all, he's a man of the world. The world is in that movie. Polanski knew about you know, suffering, revenge. There was no world more closed than film noir, and yet within that movie, we feel we're learning, you know, so much about not just the history of Los Angeles, and we're feeling about, you know, the incestuous nature of families and family love. I mean, the movie gets better and better and better. How many movies we're seeing now will get better and better and better in the way that Citizen Kane does in Chinatown?
Well said.
I don't know. Don't ask me to, you know, don't ask me to predict, because I'll be wrong.
I've always wanted to spend one summer in which I would watch all of the film adaptations of the best works of Shakespeare. I'd go find the best 3 Hamlets.
There's a big piece about Shakespeare on film in there.
Yeah.
There was reportedly a 10-minute silent Hamlet from 1905, which I've always wanted to see. I happen to think The Orson Welles Othello is a very great film.
Yeah.
It's chopped to shreds. You can't hear half of it. It was cut all over the place. They filmed it in different countries. You know, the Desdemona isn't very great.
Yeah.
But something about it just gets you into the play. It has a fantastic Iago, and the scenes in Venice have that lovely sort of silvery quality, and I think if Shakespeare had seen it, he would have, you know, called his agent and said, "Who is this Wells guy? I want him now," you know. And that's the pleasure of finding that. If I was teaching Shakespeare now, I would take them to that. I wouldn't take them to one of the more very, very faithful ones, you know, which has all the text, you know.
Yeah.
I would take them
I never saw, and I've been waiting to see it on
Brando
DVD.
Othello,
Yeah,
Brando Hamlet. You know,
that's right.
the
5
full thing.
hours.
It is kind of amazing, and I think, and I admire him for doing it.
It's a total text film.
Yeah. And you know, and it does flow extremely well, and it's in a way he shames many directors who think that Shakespeare is theirs for the hacking. It's the opposite of the Wells approach. Both have their great
Here's what I've
values.
never understood about acting. Most good actors I've known who've sat at this table, and many of them have said to me, Hamlet is easy compared with Macbeth. That Macbeth is just, you know, very few people have ever done a great Macbeth.
No. I've heard great Macbeths on the radio, oddly enough. It's a great sound play. It's a great sound play, and you can get, you know, all the great, you know, actors doing these things. But no, Hamlet is, you know, there's all the other great parts around you in Hamlet as well. Macbeth, you're kind of, apart from Lady Macbeth, you're out there on your own, you know. And I think it's the kind of exposure.
So what's second best to you from Hamlet? Is it Richard III, or is it Henry V, or what?
My favourite play is Anti-Cleopatra, which I think is unfilmable. Charlton Heston once tried. Charlton Heston tried, but you know, I think it is a very great play. Whether it truly counts as a tragedy, I don't know. I think the great film which should be made is Troilus and Cressida. You know, it's a great movie, and you could set it in Vietnam, or you could set it in the Civil War. It's about, you know, politically it's as acerbic as ever. There's a kind of dreadful love story that is kind of cut off at the knees. But it would need Scorsese, or it would need Michael Mann, you know, and it would need about $200 million, because it's the Trojan War here, guys.
Set in Miami Beach, or
yeah, exactly. So yeah. Why not? No,
about the drug trap.
Yeah, it's no. I think it would be a Civil War, Troilus and Cressida, perfectly possible for many reasons. But you know, so that's a pitch if anybody's out there. Right. You know,
Anthony Lane, Nobody's Perfect. Writings from the New Yorker, as I said, reviews, musings, and other things. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much indeed.
Pleasure to have you.